What's up, guys? Miami Heat Sports Talk. In this video, we're going to be talking about what a lot of people are, saying that can happen. LeBron James to come back to Miami. Right now LeBron is a free agent. The Lakers haven't offered him a contract. So, it's a possibility that, that LeBron can come back to Miami. There's been a lot of reports about it. Rich Paul, which is LeBron's agent, has given little hints about LeBron, not going back to the Lakers. So I think there's two ways that the Heat could get LeBron. Either we offered him the $15 million annual exception, but that's if LeBron agrees to only get $50 million, or we would have to trade Andrew Wiggins to the Lakers, and then we could pay him more because Andrew Wiggins has a player option of $30 million. So if we trade Andrew Wiggins to the Lakers, then we could offer LeBron more money. But we could also trade Nico. We could also trade Nico and Andrew Wiggins, and then we could offer him, the $30 million and a little bit more. So I think those are the two ways that we could get LeBron. But LeBron will be perfect on this team because he already knows the system. He's been part of this team. He won 2 championships with this team. He has a great relationship with Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley. And he's a floor general. That's what we need. Right now we're lacking a point guard. Even though we have Mitchell, Davion Mitchell, but we need another point guard. Especially like a point guard to come off the bench or to start. So LeBron will be perfect. LeBron is one of the greatest passers of all time. He's a very good passer. He has a very good IQ. His IQ is amazing. He's a great rebounder for a point. For his size. If he plays the point, he will be a great rebounder. He could give us 6-7 rebounds. But LeBron will be perfect on this team. Mainly because of the passing. We need that. Especially with Bam and Giannis on this team. They're gonna need somebody to feed them the ball. So LeBron will be excellent on this team. It will be a big three with LeBron, Giannis, and Bam. I never been a LeBron fan, but I've always respected his game. LeBron is one of the greatest of all time. A lot of people are debating that he might be the greatest of all time. I think he's the second greatest of all time, behind Jordan. In my eyes, Jordan is the GOAT. But, LeBron on this team will be amazing. His experience, his playmaking, he will be a perfect fit with Giannis and Bam. He's also a decent 3-point shooter. He's gotten better at threes. So, he would get a lot of open looks from the 3-point line. When Giannis is double team, he could be open in the corner for a 3. He will be perfect on this team. I also want to talk about, the possibility of that he cannot, re-sign Norman Powell. It looks like we're not gonna be able to sign him. Because he's gonna want his payday. He's gonna want his big money, and I don't think we're gonna be able to sign Norman Powell to the amount that he's gonna want. This report saying that he wants to get between 25 million to 30. So I don't think Miami's gonna be able to offer him that. Unless he takes a pay cut, which I don't think he's gonna take that. But the Heat are looking at other options. They're looking at to either get Klay Thompson, to get Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson will be amazing. Cam Johnson's a great shooter. Cam Johnson averages 20 points. Klay Thompson, has the experience. He's won championships. He's one of the greatest shooters of all time. I know he's a little bit older, but I think Klay Thompson on this team will be perfect. Because Giannis obviously is going to get a lot of attention. When Giannis gets double teamed, Klay Thompson will be open. He'll get a lot of open looks. I think Klay Thompson will be great on this team. He can take the minimum, the vet minimum, the $5 million. With no state taxes. So he'll be perfect. A lot of people have been talking about Anthony Simons. That's another great, player. I've always been, I've always been a fan of him. He'll be a great player on this team. A guy that can give you 20 points. He takes the ball to the basket. He attacks the basket. He's a decent rebounder. He'll be a good fit too. So we just need to surround this team with a lot of shooters. And I think LeBron and Klay Thompson, Anthony Simons, I think these guys are perfect to be on this team. The main thing is that we got Giannis on this team. We got our superstar. So that's the main thing that we need to do. The main thing that we did was get Giannis on this team. Now we just gotta surround him with great players, especially shooters, and see how we're gonna do. But I think the Heat are gonna be a top 4 team, But for us to be like a top 2 team, we're gonna have to just add a little more pieces. With Giannis and Bam alone, it'll be a little bit more difficult. But Eric Spoelstra has took us to the finals, with less talent. So with Giannis and Bam, we could be a top 4 seed for sure. That's like, if we're not a top 4 seed with Giannis and Bam, then I don't know what else Pat Riley could do. But it's gonna be an exciting season. I know it's a long way to go for the season. I'm gonna be posting videos of different players that we could get, different shooters that we could get. So let me know what you guys think about LeBron coming to Miami. Let me know what you guys think about Klay Thompson. Give me ideas of who you think the Heat could bring to this team to surround with Giannis and Bam. So let me know. Just give me ideas of who the Heat could get, and I'll make a video about it and we can talk about it. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and let's go Heat.